Great to see you all.
So while we're waiting for people to filter in, and thank you all for being on time, we were wondering where you are in the process of your memoir. Could you put a 1 in the chat if you're just at the idea stage? A 2 if you've got a bunch of notes in your journal that you're trying to wrangle into some sort of story form. 3 if you have a draft, and 4 if you have a draft that's you think is pretty much ready to polish, to give to an editor or to share.
Oh, thank you all. So many great numbers, including decimals and everything.
2.5, 3.5.
Yeah. Well, we understand how that goes.
Leslie, full draft ending. We've had a lot of 3 and 4s. Wow. And 2.5. Yeah. So a lot in the two journal notes are hard, aren't they? They're really hard to wrangle into publishable form.
But great that you're here today to talk about how to get started with that.
Well, Linda Joy is going to help you get started, definitely. A little bit of housekeeping here. Stay to the end. This is an hour and a half. And at the end, we do have a great offer and a bonus to get you started, a free offer. And we just want to tell you that writing a successful memoir is doable, right, Linda Joy?
It's absolutely doable, but it can seem daunting because people have so many memories, they have so many things they want to say, and we're going to really get into how to help you all with that today.
Also want you to know that this is being recording, and we will send you a link to it later, and as well as the offer and the freebie that you're going to get. So we know that you're busy and you might have to jump off, but I also want you to know, and Linda Joy doesn't even know this, that I have an extra special offer for those of people who are staying to the end. So we hope you'll stay.
Surprised too, yeah.
Stay with us. I'm going to surprise you. I was thinking about this last night, Linda Joy, and yeah.
It's a work in progress, everything we're doing. I mean, it's a creative act, and it's really fun to put together a class and really, do our best to make it really successful for everybody.
Great. So let me introduce myself. I am Carla King. And let me just get my own bio here so I can not go on and on and on. Some of you know me better than Linda Joy. Some of you don't know me at all. I am a longtime travel blogger, an author of a travel memoir, and another hopefully coming soon with Linda Joy's help, and a collection of short stories. I run Destination Published, a program that helps authors finish and publish their books independently and professionally. So I want you to finish and publish your book independently and professionally. That's me. And the star of this show is Linda Joy Myers, who I've known for many years. And she is a celebrated author of 2 memoirs, a novel, and she's the founder of the National Association of Memoir Writers, NAMW.org. So go join that. Linda Joy holds an MFA from Mills College, and she's authored 3 books about authoring memoir, and that's The Power of Memoir, How to Write Your Healing Story, Becoming Whole, which you see on the screen here too, Journey of Memoir, and she's also the co-author of Breaking Ground on Your Memoir. Linda Joy is also the author of 2 memoirs, Don't Call Me Mother and Song of the Plains, and she just tried her hand at a novel, which is amazing, The Forger of Marseille. And you know what? Linda Joy is a practicing therapist, so she also brings a unique blend of expertise and empathy to us, which does make her the perfect mentor to help us bring our stories to life. And indeed, she has helped hundreds of authors create and publish their books. So welcome, Linda Joy, too.
Thank you. And I love this work so much. And it's so great to be here today to talk to you, with you and everybody else about writing their memoir and getting it out in the world.
All right, let's start with your why, your professional and personal why. Can you just think about for a minute, why are you writing a memoir? And we have some ideas here about what you might be thinking, and maybe you have your own. So let's start this list going.
Yeah, so a personal or family story. Lots of people are writing these now, leaving a record of your life, which, you know, you run into various levels of, should I write this and can I write this? And the answer is yes. And let's keep talking. Another one is to make sense of your life journey, to look back on the past. And often this kind of writing is very therapeutic and be very helpful to get things down on the page and reflect on them. And of course, we do inspire others by sharing our stories. Sometimes people don't realize that at first, but yes, our stories connect us and help create community as well.
And we'd like you to put the number in the chat of maybe your reasons as we go along. And if your reasons don't show up here, we'd love to hear them. One of my reasons is travel. I'm a travel journalist and I write memoir and hope that that transports readers to that place with me. I work with many people of you are here are business people and professionals who want to leave a legacy and impact your audience and leave a lasting impact on that industry. Some of you are thought leaders, and a book is a wonderful and place to position yourself as a thought leader. Some people don't know you're a thought leader yet, but when you have a book, they will know that you're a thought leader.
Yeah.
Let's see, 8 is personal branding. And some of you may be putting, many numbers in the chat. I see many numbers coming along to enhance your personal brand. And finally, an educational tool. You may write a memoir to convey your learning as a model for other people's learning. So what have we got in the chat here? We have all of the above.
All of the above and a lot of personal inspiration as well, combined also sometimes with business and thought leadership and education. So, you know, it's like salad. It's a lot of combinations. That's great to see though. Thank you for putting those in.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. 2, 4, self-reflection. That's number 2. Yeah. Excellent. Who wants the money too? Put a yes in the chat if you want the money. A book can create revenue and generate money through other avenues, such as paid speaking gigs, right? And some of you are already doing this. Related services like consulting and workshops and tours and retreats, courses, related actual physical products. And of course, once you start writing, you got to write more books and more books and more books and workbooks and maybe even films. Anybody got ideas to do that? Definitely.
Script, screenplay, film, fabulous.
Well, that segues perfectly into the story of Sangeeta Iyer, who I met this year, who some of you know if you're in my group with her. In 2013, Sangeeta visited her childhood home of Kerala, India, where over 700 Asian elephants perform in very crowded, lengthy, noisy festivals. They're not fed well, they're abused, they're shackled, and presented for tourist money. And the plight of these animals for Sangeeta brought to the forefront memories of her childhood abuse herself and the despair of her young existence in an abusive family where she was trapped, misused, and helpless to escape or even raise her voice to her own plight. She wrote Gods in Shackles 2022. It's a deeply personal healing memoir in which she speaks out for the elephants and for herself and other abused women and girls in an effort to heal alongside of them and help others in their healing journeys. And guess what? She took this seriously and she wrote it to be publishable, to make a huge impact. It's a documentary film. And these days, her efforts is a full-time occupation. She's created a nonprofit, Voices for Asian Elephants. She gives workshops and leads retreats and speaks at important government agencies and really makes a difference in the lives of others and elephants who, like her, are continually healing from abuse. So you never know, even if your goals is personal healing, self-discovery, you never know where your memoir will lead you.
Oh, that's so true. You know, self-discovery is the beginning of all discovery, and a lot of things can come from that that you don't expect when you first start writing, perhaps. So it makes it all the more reason to get started and get your words on the page. But yeah, what has been holding you back? Well, so many things do hold us back. All these things held me back. One of the big ones is, dare I write the truth? Dare I write my truth? Worried about what other people will say. That's not really the way it happened. Or how dare you say that? Some of the things that need to be written about. And another one is, do I know enough? You know, so I love the fact that the word author is in the middle of the word authority. We do know what we know, and people say, well, you know, so what? You know, how does my story really make a difference? But I think Carla just talked about someone whose personal story and her experience really has made a difference, which is fabulous. And then another one about getting started is, where do I even start? We have so many memories, we have so many stories. Where to begin often really gets in the way for people, and they do sometimes get started and then, you know, kind of stall out a little bit. And that's normal. It happens to all of us over and over again. But there are some techniques that can really untangle that knot. And then, who wants to read it? I don't have time to write a book. We're all so busy. It does seem like, you know, people think, well, I have to have hours and hours and hours a day to write a book. And that's not true. There's ways to get your book done with brief writing sessions. It's consistency and persistence. What will my family and friends say? Yeah, we touched on that. Well, the more we write, the more we worry about that, but also there are some techniques to help put some of that fear to the side and just write. I'm not a word person. Maybe you got a D in English. Maybe people told you you couldn't write. This happens to people, and so they carry that wound with them all their lives. And that's just not true. We should not let, you know, ways that people have judged us or our own inner judgment stop us from doing the writing that we need to do. So what's holding you back? So Carla, have you been following the numbers? What's happening?
I have. There's a real mix here. 3, 4, and 5 seem really well, 1, 4. Now I see 1, 4, and 6.
Mhm.
Um, the 5, I don't have time. So I hope by the end, well, I know by the end of this masterclass, you're going to get some tips from Linda Joy on how to start very quickly and focus, because I think a lot of it has to do with the focus. So we're writing and not being productive a lot of the time, right? We're sort of journaling. So today, let's focus.
Journaling and getting lost sometimes in the emotions and the things that come up, but we're going to talk about that.
And just for a minute, I mean, there is a value in putting everything on the page in a first draft. Isn't that right, Linda Joy?
Yeah, we really want to encourage you. The first draft, you've all heard, you know, write a shitty first draft, write a vomit draft, whatever people are calling it these days. A lot of organic material in there. But it really is an invitation to just say what you have to say. It can always be edited. I mean, these words are not luckily chipped in granite. They're just little black marks on a white page. We have computers now. It's so much easier than having a typewriter to edit and correct and reassemble things later. So that freedom needs to be, we want to encourage you to have that freedom.
That's right. And you can use the real names and then just do a search and replace for the real names and replace it with a pseudonym.
Yes, there's that too. Right.
Right. So I know a lot of you are dreaming of holding a book in your hand. Some of you already do know what that feels like. Who is a published author here? Who has published a book? And what did that feel like when that happened? Was it just wonderful? I know some of you are published authors already. And you know, you may have written a workbook or a manual or a novel or a business book. But it is a wonderful feeling. We can definitely attest to that. So we want you to be able to start with confidence. And now I'm going to turn it over to Linda Joy to describe these three keys. And I'm probably going to interrupt too, though.
Oh, yeah,
So,
well, we can have a conversation about it.
yes.
I mean, like Carla is saying, and like what we're leading to talk more about is the first thing is to give yourself permission to write your own truth, to write what is true for you, that you have to say your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences. And then, of course, there's the craft of learning how to do that. But, we can't do it if we haven't given ourselves permission first. And we're going to dig into this topic of writing a truth in just a few moments. And then organizing your stories. This is the where do I start and what the heck do I do with all this stuff? And we're going to address that today because there's really some simple tools that can solve this problem for you. And it's sort of a practice. You learn how to use it and how to do it sort of ongoingly. And then bringing the reader with you. There's magic in the way that we learn to write a story we can bring the reader inside of our own experience, what we lived, what we thought, and what we felt. And we're going to talk about all three of these today in detail. So, yes, so I want to talk about a student that I worked with who really struggled with writing her truths, her story, but there's success here to start with. Bloodlines was just published in May by Tracy Yokas. Her story is about her daughter and herself and her family and issues of depression and self-harm. And it's a very intense story about also healing the generations. So because it's so deeply emotional, she struggled with how much to say. Dare I write about all this stuff? And if I do, then what will my husband and my daughter think? And she went all the way up to writing one version, getting it done basically, but something niggled inside of her that she hadn't really gotten to the draft, to the story that she really needed to get to. So she pulled the book from publication just at the edge of publication, and she went back in and she did more work and she dug even more deeply for her truths and what she needed to say. So let's look at some of the things that we need to look at when we're writing our truths. For one thing, I want to say that writing the truth is what a reader expects to be reading. There's a contract a memoirist has with the reader that says, I expect you to be telling me the truth to the best of your ability to express it. This does not mean everything that ever happened to you. That is not what this truth means. It means that to the degree that your truths and your revealing moments matter the most to the story, that you will let the reader in on what that is. And so that means you, the writer, are digging for the inner story. So we all, we start to think about, well, what happened and what happened when, which is important. And we're going to get to that in a minute. But people read a memoir for the inner story. How did this person live? What did they think? What did they do? Why did they do it? What is the meaning of these moments that they are putting in their book? So you have to give yourself permission to just write and freely write and do that first draft to get this stuff on the page. And sometimes, I used to write in my head. And then when I put stuff on the page, it was different than what was in my head. What a surprise. Well, and it was a little jarring, like, oh, I didn't even know I thought this. And so the reader also learns from your process of transformation and change that will show up as you write your truth. And the reader comes and kind of is like stands on your shoulders, like a camera on your shoulders when you're really writing, the authentic truth. The reader is there with you, learning from you. And this idea of learning from each other is one of the reasons that memoir is so popular now and why so many people want to write it and why so many people are reading memoir.
Mhm. Yes, and as an author who writes and a person who journals a lot, I realize that I almost don't know what I think about something until I actually write it down in my journal. Is anybody else like that? I mean, the writing part of it is definitely a thought process, and it's a very, very messy process. Yes, in the chat. Go ahead and put a
Mhm.
yes in the chat if you do that. And that is really a part journaling and getting that shitty first draft out. Really, I'm not even thinking of it as a draft. I'm just thinking about, how did this thing that happened impact me, and how big was it, and how does it relate to the other things that have happened in my life, and that may be a theme later.
Yeah, the meaning that we make from it. I'm going to talk about that in more depth in a minute. But, journaling, I mean, most of us start with journaling. It's great. I mean, many people have been journaling for years. Tracy had been keeping journals through the 25 years that she was struggling with some of the issues that she ended up writing about. And so her learning was, A, putting them in a book other people are going to read, and B, we're going to talk next about how you decide what to include, how to organize your story.
And I just wanted to put this slide up again because I want to let you know, if you came in a little bit later, that you will get this presentation and these links, but you can listen to an interview with Tracy.
Yeah, we just had her at the National Association of Memoir Writers last week at we call the virtual book club, where we have authors come and talk about their memoirs and their process and their journey. And it's really a beautiful conversation with Tracy, where she's just so honest about the process that she went through. And we really went deep together because I helped her with her book in the early years, and I knew what she had gone through, and it's very inspiring. Thanks for that, Carla. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the organization part here. I worked with Lori James for a couple of years on her story. Her story is about being married, having children, and being sandwiched between her family and her own family, and her mother and father who were aging. And it's also a story of finding herself, and her questions were, dare I have the right to do more, have more, be more than what other people expect? Am I going to do more or be more than a caretaker? And she had so many things to think about this. Let's look at the next slide. As everybody was saying in some of the share in the chat, the challenge of finding and organizing the stories can be so overwhelming, people don't even start. But there really are methods. And this one, called Turning Points, is a method that I invented, I don't know, 30 years ago, before I knew what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. That was the truth of it. I thought I was writing a novel, but then it turned out eventually to be my memoir, Don't Call Me Mother. But I wasn't writing a memoir then. I couldn't even, at that time, shy and quiet and afraid of a lot of repercussions. I couldn't admit that I was writing a book, but I was writing. I needed to write, and I'd been journaling for years. But where to start, what the story is, I had written 3 versions of what it eventually ended up being Don't Call Me Mother in novel form. I came from the point of view of my great grandmother and my grandmother. And somebody one day said, well, what's your story? I'm like, do I have a right to tell my story? There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of complications of mental illness. There's a lot of abuse. And, in those early years, especially, of course, still in the middle of therapy with all that, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding? Oh no, but I had to do it. There was something, it sort of kept tapping me on the shoulder and whispering me in my ear. So I invented these turning points, which are moments where something significant happened. That's all it is. And I started with the early years, and I found journals where I cleaned out my journal cache a while back, but I read everything first. And there's my turning points, 1, 2, 3, 4 in ink, in my journal. And it's so funny. My book is that story. All the turning points that I had in my journals as I figured out where was I going are the way the book turned out. So apparently this thing works. Plus, I've taught many, many people through the years how to find their turning points. And so it's the main big moments because you have so many, you have hundreds, thousands of moments and memories and, that you can think of. But you find first the first 10 or 20, and they can begin the beginning of the spine of your memoir. And these are the most important moments, and you'll have a lot more that you'll fill in. But these then laying these out, just a few of these even begin to show you the arc of what your story will turn into. And really, we build a memoir. We build it piece by piece, moment by moment, scene by scene. I'm going to get to scenes in a second. And we're going to be thinking about what turning points, what moments through the theme, like, well, what do you want to write about? What is your story about? And a lot of times we don't know for sure. I couldn't tell you in a sentence for several years what my memoir was about, but I wasn't in a class either, and I didn't have a teacher. I was just stumbling along. I took lots of fiction classes for the craft, the learning of the craft. But back in those days, back in the day, memoir wasn't the thing that it is now. It has evolved over these 30 years into something that, is a whole much bigger world. And that's why we're excited to present all this to you today.
We are, and I want to talk about the arc of your story just for a minute, Linda Joy, because it's interesting when I teach people how to write a travel story, for instance, there has to be a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? And also, and that translates to a book length work as well, which is so much harder for me.
It is, a book is bigger.
Some people say I have so much room to write in a big book and I can't write a short story, and I'm completely the opposite.
Well, we all have what's more challenging and what's easier for us, but all a book is a bunch of smaller pieces, really. And you just string them together. I make it sound too simple, perhaps, but you're right. I mean, if you're building it, and when we live it too, and you can rearrange what order you put things in later when you're revising after you do this first draft. But it's like, well, how did things start out and what was going on and where were we? And then, and then what happened? And then we call it the muddy middle, too. In the writing, it's the muddy middle, like, oh my God, am I ever going to get out of here? And then things come to some kind of big choice point, usually. I mean, not always. We're just talking about the general standard arc of dramatic, writing. But then there's some kind of resolution, and people say, "Oh, but my story didn't tie up with a nice bow, and I don't know where to end it." What really happens is we're writing and writing. Don't stress about that. Just keep writing. You will write your way to the end. Honestly, that's what happened to me. I never knew when my books were ending. Exactly. I knew that somewhere along, but I began to feel like, oh, I could be leading up to the end. It's something that we feel and figure out both together as we're working on it.
And I wonder if memoirists are more pantsers like you and not plotters. Has everybody heard of plotters versus pantsers? Some people plot and outline their book, and some people just don't know where it's going. And that includes fiction as well as nonfiction.
I'm kind of a combination of both because the turning points give you some idea, give you a clue, but the writing itself may take you somewhere other than where you thought you were going to go. And do you follow that or not? Well, yeah, follow it for a while, see what's happening. Later, you may go, oh, no, that doesn't really go in, but it doesn't hurt you to write it. In fact, maybe emotionally, you needed to write it, even if it doesn't later go in the final stages of your book. And these are just the natural choices that are made along the way. And people, when they start out, worry about all this so much. And the answer to that worry is just write. Write, keep a writing journal of what have you done and how was that writing day, like John Steinbeck and Virginia Woolf, and a lot of people keep a writing journal to track the process. That's a handy thing to do because we're going to forget, like, what did I do and what was I thinking? I don't remember, So it's not just journaling, only journaling, but a writing journal is a record of you and your book, and it's very handy to keep.
There's several people in the chat that say that they're writing to keep a record and not they don't like navel gazing. So keeping a record is fine. Navel gazing is good for some people and maybe not your choice.
Well, everybody's unique. Yeah.
I want to say one more thing about the arc, and that is this plot problem. I know in my first memoir, I did not use the hero's journey plot. And you'll hear all kinds of writing tips about the Finchian curve and, the hero's journey and all that. But the arc of your story does need to have a denouement, I guess you call it, Linda Joy, right? Where you get almost to the end and you have this resolution. And mine came way too early. So, 20 years later now, 15 years later, I would have completely done it differently.
Well, we write the book that we can write. We write that book and then we may or may not write another book. I mean, we write from where we're coming from. And this is what we need to not get too worried about as we get started. Write the best book you can from where you're coming from right now. And, things evolve, things change, we evolve and we change. So then we write another book. I mean, I accidentally wrote Song of the Plains. I wasn't planning on writing another memoir, but then I did find I had more to say about healing and intergenerational dynamics and how can we heal ourselves through that. And so and ended up writing a second. Let's look at scenes. So I worked with Julie McGew. She's a prize-winning author now. Her memoir, Twice a Daughter, is about being adopted. And she's also a twin. So she and her sister were on this journey together, trying to find their birth parents and trying to find records in an era, the baby scoop era it was called, where all the personal information was not on any documents. And so it was quite a journey of the mystery of who am I and who are we and where do we come from. And also she's got her wonderful mother and father who adopted her. And it's quite tricky, to manage, the emotional journey of this story. And so let's look at the next slide. We worked really hard together on creating scenes to bring the reader into the room, literally into these moments with Julie, where we're right here with her. We are right next to her. We're seeing the world through her eyes and experiencing it through her body. Mary Karr, the well-known memoir writer who started off with the Liars Club, talks about zipping, the writer zips the reader up in our skin. So we are experiencing something, and the tool that creates that are scenes of vivid color and description, and scenes of your inner thoughts, along with action, along with dialogue. I mean, it's a little bit like juggling or playing in a string quartet or something like that. There's a lot going on in a scene. And this is the secret key, one of the most important secret keys to creating a memoir that is powerful and emotional. Even if it doesn't matter, if your topic is business, you still want to inspire people. You want people to understand how you were thinking, what inspired you, why did you make those decisions? And there are going to be moments where you don't want to just say, well, one day I got up and then I had this idea and then I went to the office and then I wrote it in my computer and yawn, but, if we see you, I woke up. I couldn't wait to get to the office. I had to get all this stuff down. I tripped and fell and dropped my purse and, I spilled my coffee. I mean, whatever happened, we want to see the engagement of you with your idea and the things that get in the way. The elevator was broken, so I was all sweaty by the time I got to the top of my building or whatever. I mean, the reader is going to be going, well, I hope she gets there. Let's stay with her. What is this idea? And tell us more. And so a scene is active and vivid. There's action. There's all these things going on a scene. And you all have heard pretty much, since you're writers, show, don't tell. Well, memoir writers need to show and tell. Telling is part of the revealing of the inner reflections that we were talking about earlier, what you thought, what you were experiencing, how you were making meaning. But most of a scene is showing and then having the reflection woven in. And so it's very much of an integrative process. And I came from academia. I also got a degree from Mills, but when I was there, I hadn't yet learned about how to write scenes. And finally, I had a meeting with my thesis advisor, and this teacher talked about all these things. I didn't even understand what she was saying, but now I realize she was talking about craft, scenes, and character development and plot, and all this stuff. And I was writing in narration, and most of us start off in narration. I'm just going to narrate. I'm going to tell you a story. But that's not enough. I mean, yes, the storyteller is part of the book, but the scenes show and reveal and make the reader keep turning the pages. I'm sure you know that, Carla, because you've done it yourself. I've seen it.
Thank you. Yes, it's exciting to write scenes. And it's brain science shows that when your reader is experiencing
Oh.
your story because you are bombarding them with sensory detail, you're especially smell and taste are very strong and often so left out of story. We use sight and sound a lot, and touch as well. We hardly ever use the touch feeling in writing.
Mhm.
And the brain science reveals that you do take your reader along with you when you provide those. And a lot of authors, the writers think, oh, but this story is getting so long. I shouldn't say how the cold water felt on my skin or the salt tasted, because that's just not important. But it is. It puts the reader into your skin.
Mhm. Yeah, the brain, it's so interesting what you're talking about. It just blew my mind. I mean, we kind of know this, but when science can prove it, that's always fun too. That the reader's brain lights up in the same way that the writer's brain lights up. And when we use scenes, when we use vivid detail, and I'm like, wow, points of light for sure there. That's really cool.
And a lot of people on travel, people say, gosh, I'm glad you did that, Carla, so I don't have to.
Yeah, we get to travel with you. I doubt that I'll
Exactly.
be going to China, but you took me there.
Yeah. So again, like Linda Joy said, she mentioned business, and you might be dismissing the theory that you need the, sensory detail when you're writing a business or a professional memoir, but you do. You do. So these three keys are critical to all the kinds of memoirs and really all the kinds of writing that you're doing if you want to bring people into your world. And this may even be a blog post, right? You want to bring them into your world.
Yeah, yeah. That's our job as the writer of all these kinds of books, is to bring the reader with us. And there's a variety of techniques, but absolutely, figuring out the turning points, those turn into scenes. Figuring out the arc, beginning, middle, and end to some degree. You don't have to plot it out if you're not one of those plotter people, but you'll be thinking about it. You already know what happened. You have a sense of the arc, I think, inside yourself. It's just what do you show, what do you leave out, and all this kind of stuff. And then scenes are the click, it's like we are there.
And it's true too that we're all natural storytellers and we know how to tell a story around the campfire, around the dinner table, and we know what lights up our audience because you get the reaction right then and there. And you're speaking as you could write in 3 acts, a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has an arc, it's got a lesson. It's kind of incredible that we really are to trust your natural ability to tell a story.
Yes, I think we have that more than maybe we realize, or that we don't trust it. And so that's why it's so important to just jump in with both feet and say, hey, okay, this is what I think I'm going to write. I mean, that's how I did my novel too. I'm like, well, I knew even less. I mean, I was a historical novel. I had done a lot of research, but I had no idea what I was doing, sort of, but, I knew there needed to be scenes. I used my memoir skills, to create it, but it was an unfolding experience, and I kept learning new things along the way, and it made it interesting. We don't want to be bored when we're writing. We want to be engaged in this search for the story that we're trying to write.
And that's what makes you such a great teacher, Linda Joy, because, when you muddled through those years, now you know what you're doing and you created shortcuts for us.
Well, I'll do my best.
We wanted to put up a bunch of memoirs that we admire, and Linda Joy knows some of these, and I know others better. Do you want to start, Linda Joy, with the
Yeah.
ones that you like?
Yeah, well, I like so many, but like The Glass Castle is an older memoir by Jeanette Walls, pretty well known now. But I mean, Jeanette writes in scene. We are in this poverty-stricken house in the point of view of this skinny little girl who's hungry all the time, and then what her parents do and say that try to cover up that this is unusual living. We are really there with her. And the same for H is for Hawk. It's one of my favorite books, very poetic. It's about Helen McDonald's, her father dies, and she's already a falconer, but she decides to get a baby hawk named Mabel to raise her. And it's the journey of raising the hawk, which is quite an intense experience. I knew nothing. Speaking of letting people know about things that you don't know, I knew nothing about hawks, and it was really wonderful to be immersed in her point of view of England and hawking. And then it's also a story of grief. What do you do that even seems a little crazy, when you're grieving? How about some of the books for you?
Yeah, let me just talk about The Glass Castle and H's. Those two are really amazing. The Glass Castle is also a great example of how you can present dialogue and insights at different years of your life, because if you're 60 and you're like, how did I talk when I was 8, or 3 or 17,
People are talking about that in the chat. Yeah.
It's an amazing example. So if you're looking back and digging for that kind of lesson, that's definitely the book. And if you're a research junkie and you're writing a memoir that's heavy with research, a great example is that H is for Hawk book. And I think a lot of memoir requires research. Tracks by Robin Davidson. It's an old book and it's perpetually going to be made into a movie. I hope it is soon, and I hope it's good. But you learn everything about camels, right? In Australia, right?
Wow.
And in Bicycling with Butterflies, you learn about the butterfly. In Doppelganger is a political memoir. Naomi Wolf is the doppelganger of Naomi Klein, and she's completely frustrated all the time by getting mixed up with her, and they're on the opposite side of the political spectrum, and it's just making her crazy. So it's both a internal and external political memoir. And The Undertaking, Linda Joy, is another format. It's a memoir by stringing together a series of 12 essays about the undertaking business, right? To show us the undertaking business.
Yeah, the essays, that's another form of like it's small stories put together. Same for In the Dream House, which are sometimes a few lines on the page, sometimes longer stories. And form is being experimented with more and more lately. And you could make this place beautiful. It has a whole different form, and it's really amazing. Sometimes it's poetry, sometimes it's one line, sometimes it's a longer vignette. It is chronological development, but in a very gentle, creative way. And there is transformation and change in that book. We haven't mentioned much about transformation and change, but in all of these stories, the protagonists, all of them, how they are at the beginning of the book, of the story, changes. And what we're following is the logic and the illogic sometimes of the person's change over time, and eventually what they get to at the end of the book.
Yeah, put it in the chat if you've read these books, and if you have a favorite memoir that you're reading. now, and maybe why. I think it's essential if you're writing memoir to read memoir, especially new memoir, because Linda Joy talks often about the structure and the new structures of memoir. So, in my travel, I'm always looking back to John Steinbeck and, that era, but I don't have to write that way anymore. And it's a very enlightening and interesting and motivating when I see the new structures that are available to me as a writer of my own, and the fact that I can combine and make my own structure.
Yes, it's all open now. There used to be a lot of parent rules about what you can and can't do. And memoir, we're talking years ago. I started also teaching courses with Brooke Warner and 13 years ago. And what seemed true or the proper way to teach then has really changed. So, of course, we've had to adjust our teaching and our thinking. And I have too over time. And I'm even thinking of writing a non-traditional form memoir myself. Yet again, maybe we'll see in shorter pieces. So everything is still evolving, and you all get to decide, what you want to do and how you want to do it. And I think the big deal is, what do you do and how do you get started?
Yeah. And, we've talked about writing truth, organizing stories, and bringing the reader along. And you can all get started with that, after we're done with this session. And I think some of you may already know and maybe had ideas. Do you have an idea now where to start, or what scenes you might include, or if you can identify a turning point for your story? If you think back, have any of you had reflections and want to put that in the chat about what comes first in your writing today at the end of this session?
Is there something popping in your mind right now as you're sitting here? That's where ideas start. They just start with a little blink. Oop, there's a new idea. Great.
Very cool.
Good to see some of you putting those in. Yeah, thank you for that.
So, yeah, thank you. And this is a great start. And we know that you can get started today, and we hope you will. And we want also like to show you how to finish if you want to continue your journey with us. We'd love to talk to you about that.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited to offer this course, with Carla. We're going to be digging into the details about the things we just gave you kind of a little outline about. The course is writing a successful memoir. And as you can see on the right there, the course content includes all these things that are absolutely necessary tools to create a successful publishable memoir, from gathering your topics and themes, looking at that, finding those turning points, and then putting them on a timeline. Whether you're a pantser or a plotter, it really helps to have a sense of where you're going generally, because out of the turning points arise scenes, which, as we mentioned, are the building blocks of memoir, really digging into what is needed in a scene. What do you need to do? How do you need to actually write in such a way that you're bringing the reader along? And by the way, I do want to say another thing on scenes I forgot to mention, and that is that writing scenes and not just staying in narration changes us, because we are back in this other moment in time, and we are there looking from a different point of view. The writer, the person who knows everything that happened, and it's just amazing, this way that we see ourselves and see the story evolution, change, and shift by writing scenes. And then structure. There's a whole bunch of structures that are possible now, from more experimental to traditional structures, which still work really well, perfectly to show someone's experience. Characters. Oh my God, your characters are people you knew and loved or didn't love or whatever it was. But there's really an art to creating characters in memoir so that you can get everybody talking and everybody interacting in your story. Dialogue. This upsets people sometimes. I didn't have a tape recorder with me. No, but dialogue comes from the authenticity of a certain moment with the authenticity of presenting the characters and you, the protagonist, as you were. So the truth of the emotional truth of the situation is revealed partly through dialogue. Narration and time traveling. I mean, we are time travelers as memoirists. We are putting ourselves in our time machine and hitting go when we go back and reflect upon the past, when we go back and dig around. And there's ways to handle that structurally in a memoir, and we're going to be talking about that. Transformation and change, again, it's here because it's so important, really kind of digging further into more about like writing is healing, writing as a tool for, your own healing, but as you're presenting what has happened to you and how you learned and how you manage things and how you changed, the reader goes on that journey with you. And we're going to dig deeper into writing the truth in this other section, the essence of memoir, like we were talking about earlier. There's layers to looking at truth. What truth? What do I do with it when I find it? And talking more about that. And yay, today Carla's going to tell you about some of these bonuses and next steps that we have in mind today.
Yeah, and I just want to mention that this is Linda Joy is recording these now and creating a really amazing course, and I'm seeing the recordings and they are just so enlightening. I do want to just interrupt this program because I know some of you may have to jump off, and I want you to be sure to get your freebie, and that is the Turning Points freebie from Linda Joy, which we described today.
Yeah, well, I will say again, this is the tool that really helped me and has helped all my students. I think it's fair to say, over time, kind of get a handle on where to start, and the scenes naturally come out of turning points. So it is so helpful in getting past the, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start, or I've started, but I'm stuck and I don't know where to go. And so we're really happy to give you this ebook today.
So this craft of writing a successful memoir, it is a cohort. That means that we are gathering together a group of you to study together, to listen and look at the videos that Linda Joy is recording, learn, do the homework, and then gather together in a group to talk about it. We are also including Linda Joy's Break Ground on Your Memoir book, which is a quick start to memoir writing.
Yeah, well, in here, I go into Brooke Warner and I wrote this book together, and I have to say it's one of the most popular books because it's a very tiny, small little book, so you can get your mind around all this stuff, showing you about turning points, mild mapping and outlining, and scenes. And it has examples about how to use these tools, and we're really happy to make sure you have this book at your disposal right away.
And it is a learning tool, and it's a great companion to the coaching and to the videos that we are providing in this cohort. I'm also giving you access to the publishing workbook for independent authors that I just published last month in June, because it's good to write toward publication or toward success, whatever that means for you. And for many of you, that means publication. And so even if you don't use this workbook immediately, it's good to scan through it and know what is ahead of you. If you plan to try to find an agent and a traditional publishing deal, it's better if you go armed with what it takes to publish, and self-publishing or independent publishing study will prepare you better for that.
Yeah, wonderful book. I just got mine in the mail. Thank you.
Did you? I'm so glad. I wasn't sure when it would come. Yay. Yeah. Okay. I've also created writing groups, memoir writing groups that the cohort will join for the 8 weeks. This is an 8-week experience, so that every time we meet, we can share your writing scenes. You can share with each other, kind of workshop your scenes, your themes, your outlines, whatever that you want to work on, what Linda Joy is asking you to work on that week. And I just want to make sure that you know that this is weekly group coaching with Linda Joy, which is amazing. And I love groups. I just have to say, it's great to have a one-on-one with a coach, but the group vibe is so fun for me because you have extra accountability, right? You make friends, you can find writing partners.
Right. People find buddies. They find people that can give them accountability beyond, the meeting, the group meetings here. And in group coaching, people talk about, well, I tried to write a scene, or some of the questions people are putting in the chat are the things that we answer in group coaching, and so helping each other, giving each other feedback in the writing group and the group coaching is a great combination, I think, for people to move beyond being stuck, or get more work done and accomplish a lot through this course.
It's true. And this cohort 8-week experience also includes ongoing writing and discussion moderation with me. I'll be there all the time for support, tech support in getting your stories into the writing group. This platform contains everything that you need. We are not going on Facebook groups. The group is here. The discussion group is here. So yay, no Facebook groups. The videos are here. Everything that you need is here.
Yeah, I love it. Here we are with the schedule for what's going to be happening. And we're going to be welcoming people on July 29th. And then we have these sessions set up at 10 in the morning Pacific time for the group coaching discussions. And it's open season on questions about any of the courses, but particularly we're going to focus on the ones that are, primary for that week, but you can ask anything.
And so we've counted up what value this is. It's like worth almost, $2,600, $697 for the course, $1,600 value with group coaching with Linda Joy and me. $200 is the writing and discussion group, and $70 or really more with the books and resources. And we want you in. So we are offering the cohort for $997, but we decided to make it $697 just for this week. We really want you in here. We want a good group together, and you can get that by using the code IGNITE 2024 at checkout.
Yeah, I really hope you guys can come, because I think you'll get a lot out of this. You'll get a lot done. There's nothing like being in a kind of having your own accountability by coming to a group and showing up for both the coaching groups and the writing group. And it's amazing what you can get done in a few weeks. I think some people underestimate that, but when there's an assignment due, most people do it. And so it really helps with that.
Linda Joy is going to say, write a scene, and you're all going to put it in the writing group and workshop it. And then we'll talk about scenes and maybe put a couple of you in the hot seat during the group coaching. So get ready for that. You can get there by going to the bit.ly. Let me just read that. bit.ly/craft-of-memoir and putting in IGNITE 2024 as a coupon code for the $697 price for the 8-week experience for this cohort. And there will also be an option to continue on with the writing group after it ends. And we find that many people love to do that because we just all want to gather, don't we? And writing is a lonely job.
Yeah, it's great to be with a community. And also there's an important thing called witnessing that happens when we're in a group and sharing our really personal writing. It's very transformative. It's deep, amazing moments happen in these groups.
Okay, and then I don't want you to forget to download the Turning Points ebook from Linda Joy. So we can put that in the chat. And the code and the link to the course and the cohort. And now it's time for Q&A. We have plenty of time and we'll go off camera and do that. I just want to make sure that you get that link. And again, you will get this recording, you will get the slides, and the links that we've provided here. And so now I'm going to turn off the camera and we are happy to go. We can go in gallery mode and see who's here and answer questions about the course, about craft, whatever you'd like to talk about today.
Yeah, we're
So,
available.
yeah, if you'd just like to go up to view on the right, if you're on a computer, you can go to speaker mode or gallery mode, whatever you'd like.
And raise your virtual hand. Those are at the bottom of the Zoom so we can see you, or also put your questions. And I think there's been a running amount of comments and questions, so we need to see if we can find some.
Yeah. So one of them is Rachel asked, what is the best way to get a personal coach? Well, Rachel, this is a wonderful way to get a personal coach because you get to test a coach. I mean, Linda Joy does do personal coaching. And so you could talk with her afterwards. Group coaching and learning will jumpstart your experience with your coach as well. And this is a very, very affordable way to get the expertise right now.
It's in the group coaching, in our discussions in the class, the way you see the videos, and in the group coaching, you kind of get a sense of how I work and what I think and, how I talk about things, and see if that resonates with you.
All right, we'll get Monica on the screen. Hi, Monica. What's your question?
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. So my question is, because I'm very new to this, do you change the names in the memoir for legal reasons? Because the way that I sort of see it is, if I'm telling the truth,
yeah,
would they just say it's my truth and I would get into legal issues? Or
yeah, let's touch on that. I mean, I'm not a legal attorney, but everybody asks that question. And so what I recommend is write your first draft using all the names that are real, because you resonate with those as real people that you interacted with. If you try to change the name too early, it gets A, confusing, and B, there's a distance, because you're writing about real people and you have feelings and thoughts and interactions and all that. If there's what you think are legal or even ethical issues in your story, as you get toward later in your first draft, you would contact a literary attorney and have them do a read through and ask your questions and the issues that are embedded in there or you are concerned about, and people get their books vetted that way.
Thank you.
No worries. Just write the first draft.
Thank you.
So Allegra wants to know about the group coaching and writing group and how they work.
Okay, so right now, there are 9 videos, Linda Joy, maybe 10. So during this, we will have a group meeting on July 29th to get oriented. In the meantime, you should be looking at 1 or 2. Linda Joy will give you the assignment to look at 1 or 2 of those videos. The following Monday, we'll all meet live and discuss the lesson, and possibly if you want to share your scene or whatever you're working on, I'll choose somebody to make an example of if you'd like, or not, you can keep it private. So we'll do that for 8 weeks. So that's how that works.
Yeah. So, and in the writing group, though, you run that with Google Docs, and people put their writing in and get feedback from their cohort. Is that right?
Right. Now, you can use Google Docs, but you can also share right within the posts. It looks kind of like Facebook,
Okay.
but it's inside the group that we're using. And so you can post it right into your post. We'll be asking for pieces of about 500 words, just so that, because we'll have many people, and, a scene shouldn't be that much longer.
Mhm.
And to just get a flavor of what you're trying to do and teach on
Well,
that.
yeah, and there's other assignments where maybe you'll share your turning points and we'll talk about them, or there's exercises in the characterization section on writing a portrait of somebody. You can just share the portrait. There's others where there's dialogue. You might share one of your dialogue scenes and say, hey, does this work? Do you have any suggestions about how to make it better? So there's specific assignments, as well as just maybe a scene you're having trouble with. Well, or is there enough characterization in the scene, or is the dialogue weird? And, does anybody understand what I'm thinking and feeling in this scene? Those are the kinds of questions that people ask sometimes when they're sharing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you will get notifications, which you can turn off if you want, when someone posts in the group, so that you'll know right away that there's something to read, there's something to comment on. You'll be able to meet each other. You'll be able to connect with each other privately if you want to work together on a project, or get together and be writing buddies, accountability partners. Accountability is huge in a group process. I find that I do procrastinate unless I have a group. I have a travel writing group every Friday, and it tends to, keep everybody going,
Yeah.
because we promise that we're going to have a story, and if we don't, we get,
Where do you
virtually
feel
slapped.
Allegra asked a good question here. She said, is the writing group independent once we've been put in one? Do you monitor? Well, you're answering that now. People's writing will be in the writing group, and in the discussion in group coaching, which is those Mondays at 10 o'clock. Those last an hour. Somebody asked how long they were. And there we will get into your questions and your comments. Maybe you read somebody's piece, you have a question about it. Did that, is that okay? Or, I wanted to understand more. And you can ask those questions of your cohort in the group coaching hour also.
Mm-hmm. And Allegra, yes, the writing group, you can use it. You can continue on that journey for as long as you'd like, for a small fee to support the group costs, and continue with these people. I do monitor. I have everybody sign an oath of confidentiality, because, what happens in the writing group stays in the writing group. That's always important.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, people do worry about confidentiality. And so I always have people sign something or raise their hand and promise to keep everything confidential, meaning you don't share somebody else's story with anybody else. You don't leave your writing room and come out and say, hey, to your friends nearby, I just read this amazing story. So we don't do that. And people keep your stories. These are very personal stories and unique to you. And they are kept safe inside the group and inside the platform.
What is also wonderful about a writing group is this is your first step toward a book marketing street team. So I am Little Miss Publishing here, and I'm thinking about creating an email list, getting the word out about your book. And the earlier that you can engage people with your writing, the better. These people are going to be your champions when your book is launched, whether it's a year or two down the line. Writing groups also foster amazing friendships. I have started a writing group during COVID, and I know, I mean, we've become such good friends, and we've met in person as we travel the globe, not just the US, but North America, but the globe. So writing groups and coaching and learning the craft also gives you a head start in sharing with people who don't know you. Perhaps you want to publish a blog, you want to write in the Substack, write on the Medium platform, publish in journals, submit your stories to anthologies. You can learn the craft of writing a good story, run it by a bunch of people, 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 people, and make that a great story before you submit it for publication to editors. Editors are extremely, extremely anxious about getting good stories to publish in their publications, and they want your stories.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to be writing a book. I mean, it's, and it's such a relief to write a story, I mean, I've written long books, takes a long time. It is one piece at a time, but it takes a while before the full arc is assembled and all that. But we have every essay, every story has its own arc, has scenes, has reflections, has all these, things that we need to do to create something interesting for a reader.
Hmm. Yeah, and we workshop book chapters in our writing group, and we also create stories, publishable stories out of some of those book chapters, which is easy. And you can also identify your signature story there as well. So the book, while you're building the book, you can be busy. I'm going to say that bad P word, building your platform. But what that means to me, it just means sharing and getting your work out there. And creating relationships with your reader, because after all, remember Linda Joy says you're bringing the reader along with you. And she's teaching you how to do that and how to connect with readers in your writing. But these people are going to be your super fans.
Well, I didn't know all that Carla's talking about when I was first doing all this stuff. I'm like, what is a street team? I think I even asked you one time, what is that?
Yeah, a street team. Well, let me just define that real quick. I mean,
Okay.
it comes from indie music, but independent publishers. And now, because traditional publishing houses don't really do all that much for you, authors end up doing it themselves. Your street team is the private name you have for all the people who love you and who will help you get the word out about your book.
Yeah, it's great to have that, and we need that. So somebody's asking about, the different levels of writers. You have to be at a certain level. This is for anyone. Some people already write and already know a lot of these things, and they want to get back into gear with writing their memoir. Maybe they put it down for a while. Maybe some of these, like, what do I include and what do I leave out? Those questions get in the way, or they're tired. Some people on the chat, I saw some things go by about the emotional exhaustion that we can have, which is a topic that is explored more thoroughly in the longer class. And what do we do with that? And so sometimes people are rested and now they're ready to come back with a new view, a new vision of their story or their writing process, because it takes both the idea of what am I writing about, and also how can I take care of myself if I'm exploring, let's say, deep healing. A lot of people these days and for a while write about trauma, write about very challenging moments. And so I always teach people how to take care of themselves if they're writing that kind of thing. And we'll be talking about that from the beginning if people need to, how to set that up for themselves.
This is why Linda Joy and I are such great partners, because I just don't, that the healing memoir part, because, you're a practicing therapist, you're so used to nurturing people through that journey in life and in writing. And I'm just over here talking about, structure and street teams and writing groups and helping with the tech. So I just love partnering with you, Linda Joy.
Oh, well, me too, and I need to remember there's all kinds of layers of these stories, and I am, very experienced with the writing as healing, but I've helped people write other books as well. But I mean, I think the thing that I did want to mention, though, that we will go more deeply into is how to take care of yourself and how to support each other in the writing group and in the group coaching when you're writing something where you're kind of digging in and looking at, some of the challenges. And somebody, let's see, thank you, Constance, for helping, but I want to mention what Carolina is saying here, writing the loss of her daughter. So sorry, Carolina. And stopping writing for a while, which we have to do. We have to do this to take care of ourselves. Sometimes we can't put things into words and ask if the writing can help her heal. And I have to say unequivocally, yes. I mean, I have a little story about it. I mean, some people come in to writing their memoir knowing or feeling or sensing or wondering if the writing can help them heal, because we're writing now about something that happened before. And in the now, we're not stuck in that place. We're in a different place, but we're looking at it through the perspective of ourselves now, which gives some distance. There's still going to be painful moments. And I think people who are writing about pain need to write briefly about the pain, but I have an exercise called writing the dark and light stories. I have people list the turning points of the darker moments and list the turning points of the lighter, happier moments, and make sure that they, you know, alternate them and not just keep writing the painful ones. And when I was writing Don't Call Me Mother, I made sure that my more traumatic chapters were followed by a happier chapter with my cello teacher, or, you know, playing games with the kids outside, and made sure that they alternated. And we get so many comments from people all these years, teaching for 25 years. I didn't think I was writing a healing memoir, but actually it did help me resolve some things or look at things through a new lens. And so if your intentionality, Caroline, is to, you know, to heal, to find a new way to hold that experience, writing can be really, really helpful with that.
Mhm. Great. Are there any more questions in the chat, or would you like to hop on the video? Raise your hand.
Raise your virtual hand.
Raise your real hand, your virtual hand. I know a lot of people have their cameras off. So it is 11:24 our time. We have 5 minutes left, and I did promise an extra special bonus for those of you who stayed till the end, and that is if you sign up before tomorrow at noon, I will, for the first 10 people, I'm going to say, this is always fun for me, I'll give you an hour-long jumpstart one-on-one call with me. Hour-long jumpstart. Yeah. And so I will see you when you sign up. I will email you and we can organize a phone call or a Zoom call and talk about your journey and how best to use the cohort as a jumpstart and next steps. And we'll just talk about your journey.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I love doing those. I love it. I don't always have time for them, but especially at the beginning of a course, it's always great to get to know the people in it and where you are and what you want, your hopes and dreams. So I look forward
Yeah,
to
all
talking.
that. I know, it's great. Well, you know, people want to feel safe. They want to feel heard. They want to feel like it's okay to write their story, even if it's gritty or challenging or painful. All right. And so I'm really used to working with those kinds of challenges with everybody. I've been doing it all these years, 25 years. And, you know, I do my best to help everybody feel safe and heard. And it helps to talk about these things. You know, people tell me, oh, my story is ugly, or it's really got some, you know, some bad trauma in it. And we can hold that in the group in a certain way. But people, you know, it's a challenge to write stories like that. But there's also the positive stories, and we need to find, if we can, some kind of balance with that too. So we have a few questions about payments coming up, but I think you can help answer that.
I can help answer that. And listen, I'm going to send you the slides, the link to this masterclass, the link to the course, the link to the freebie, and all of that as soon as the Zoom meeting is done churning and doing its thing later today. So you will get all of this material. You'll be able to review it. And I hope to meet 10 of you, hope to be organizing phone calls and Zoom meetings with 10 of you before tomorrow at noon. So Thank you. Thank you so much for staying on. Thank you for being serious about your memoir. As you've heard, memoir is an extremely popular format genre these days, and people are very eager to hear your story.
And be transformed by it and be inspired by it. And thank you all for coming. And I really hope that I'll be working with you in the course. And thank you, Carla, for setting all this up and taking care of all the tech.
That's what I do. The tech girl. All right. And Linda Joy, we'll see you on July 29th for our first meeting.
Absolutely. See you there. Orby Square.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a good week. Bye-bye.